Welcome to another edition of the ITMOD Cast podcast. I am not Darren Smith, but I am joined by Billy Dass, the indie dork. What's up, Billy?
Not too much. I'm happy to be here. It's very exciting.
It is very exciting because we have no other dorks with us. It's just Billy and Brad, B&B, talking to some really rad filmmakers. Who are we talking to, Billy?
We're talking to the Nelms brothers, who are the writers, directors, and secret editors of Small Town Crime.
Don't spoil, man.
Oh, I shouldn't have. That's my bad. Small Town Crime, which drops on Blu-ray this week. So go out and support that shit. This movie's great. It was a Lost Weekend feature. I think everybody loved it.
Yeah, which one is which, though, in this conversation? That's the question. We did not get verbal identification. So we're talking to two brothers. And you'll listen to that. I'm sorry, listeners. Let's see if you can keep track.
All right. So here we are with the writers and directors of Small Town Crime, which is coming out on Blu-ray this week. We're really excited to have them along to talk about the movie. It's a nasty little story about some really mean characters who find a way to do good things despite their fucked upness, I guess would be the best way to put that. Let me just be direct about it. So I'm really excited to have you guys here. Welcome along to the podcast.
Thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
I think the first thing that I really want to talk about is the thing that stood out to me the most is I remember it was we saw it as part of Lost Weekend out at the Alamo Draft House in Winchester, Virginia, and man, that film festival is like 25 movies over 4 days, and your butts are in seats the whole time. Like it is an intense thing. And Small Town Crime stood out to me, even in this cacophony of movies that we're seeing, it stood out to me because of the roaring of his engine as he's zipping along down the streets, like doing his thing, the devil may care sorta in his ride, and like the sound design for that, I really love that, and I really love what the car brought to the character. And I was wondering if you guys would be willing to talk a little bit about how you picked the car for the movie, because there's two or three cars that really stand out. You got John Hawkes' car. You got the Mood. Clifton Collins Jr. has his 60s Impala tricked out with the hydraulics. And then even the assassins in the movie have their kind of old school Cadillac that they're driving around. So could you talk about the selection for those cars a little bit and how you came into having them?
Absolutely, brother. I mean, first and foremost, Ian and I are like very much sheet metal guys. We love our cars. For us, though, it's interesting because, the cars, there's a couple of things. First of all, the cars overall, for us, are like their horses. So each one has their own specific horse in a way. So they're a very Western parallel there. As far as John's car specifically, we had a dear friend of ours in high school that drove a souped-up, just screaming Nova. And he took us out for lunch one afternoon, and he hit a very desolate, relatively safe place to do this. But he laid on the hammer, and that car flung us back in the seat and made such a lasting impression. It just burned in. And so when we wrote the character of Mike Kendall, we're like, Mike Kendall absolutely has to have this car. And it was just a mean rake primered Nova. And so when we ended up shooting the movie in Utah, it was written into the script, like very specifically, and we were like, okay, now we have to find it. And that actually became the mission once we got to Utah, because we couldn't just have one. We had to have two, because as you know, these old, while amazing, this old Detroit Iron likes to break down a little bit, especially when you soup them up. And that car could actually do what you're seeing. I think it's real. We're like, it has to burn out. It has to be able to fling gravel and speed down the road very quickly. And so we set out to find this car in Utah. We found one miraculously. It was about an hour away. The guy had built it to drag race, and so it had a big block Chevy in it. It was a 1972 with a 70s grill, and we went to drive it. We got it. We got the price, and away we went. And it's the most thumbs up we've ever gotten driving back that hour in that car to the production offices.
So you mentioned how you see the cars as their horses. Was the Western genre the initial inspiration rather than, say, like Elmore Leonard, Motown crime stuff?
No, it was definitely probably the first thing we thought of when we figured out we wanted to tell this story was we live about 3 hours north of LA. Our parents do. And we take this long drive to their house, about 3.5 hours. It's the perfect time to brainstorm for us. So it's a 3.5 hour drive through just, oil fields and agriculture and some nice hilly, barren landscape. And it's very Western aesthetic. And that's what we thought of it. We thought, okay, what if a guy finds a body out here? And we're like, what if he's an alcoholic ex-cop? And then we kind of built the story all around that. So it was definitely there was definitely a crime thriller vibe to that. And like our biggest influences when we were kids were our mom got the Clint Eastwood collection. So it's like every 2 weeks we would get another Clint Eastwood classic in the mail, VHS cassettes, and we would watch, all the Dirty Harrys, all the Leone Westerns, and beyond that, of course, with the Josie Wales and whatnot. But I mean,
I really think it's that synthesis that created this sort of character for us in this environment.
And Eastwood's amazing at playing that sort of gray area character that you still want to follow because he's such a badass, and at least his moral compass is headed in the right direction. He's trying to do good, even though he's doing a lot of shitty things on the way. Sometimes he's out to get it done and get the bad guys.
Well, now that you say that, I mean, I certainly see a lot of Eastwood in John Hawkes.
Oh yeah, man. He was channeling. I think he was channeling quite a few people, but we really felt that vibe as well.
Where did you get him? How did he get involved?
John?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I've been huge fans of his work. Obviously, in winter, the range that he has, and just he's able to bring this. He has like so many gears, so he can be severe and scary as hell, or he can be the totally sympathetic guy in the sessions, So like that range and latitude in his performance is what really, really excited us. Our introduction to John actually came through Pctavia Spencer, who obviously plays Kelly in the picture and is also an EP. And she was the absolute, first person on. Ian and I were working on another project with her, and she said, what are you guys working on next? I'm like, well, we're doing this crime thriller. And we had just finished the lookbook. We threw it up on her television. She got super juiced up. She loves crime thrillers. You don't really think about Pctavia Spencer being synonymous with crime thrillers, but she has a real affection for them. And she said, let me read it. We gave her the script. 2 days later, she calls back, and she's like, I'm in. I'm EP in this. Bring your list, boys. Come on over. Bring your list. We're going to figure out what actors we want to get here. And all of us just landed on John Hawkes.
Yeah. He was, and he was incredible to work with. The first time we sat down with him, he was like, okay, he's only had the script maybe a day or two, and he was like, okay, I've only read it 3 times. So, I'm sorry if I'm not, I have this thing dialed in. And we're like, okay, well, that was a great sign right there that he liked it enough and was invested enough to sort of dive in and really try to, pull as much as he could out before that meeting. But it was a great precursor into his process, in that, he must have read the script a few hundred times by the time we finished. He would just read it, and then he'd start at the beginning again and read it, start at the beginning again and read it. He just kept reading and reading, and that would mine more questions from him for us, and I think help him dive deeper into to layer up that character.
Yeah, and I think John was as thrilled as we were to have him in the role. He really needs more leading roles, and it's just exciting to have him be able to do that.
Yeah, he's incredibly versatile as an actor. There wasn't anything we could throw at him that he wasn't able to make his own,
I mean, the driving, to call back to the car you're talking about, John does 99% of the driving in the movie.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's interesting because after one impressive gravel spewing 180 where he does that and then hits his perfect mark and then slingshots down the road, he comes back and he pulls up in the stunt. I mean, we have a stunt guy on hand the whole time doing stunt he's not comfortable with, and the stunt guy leans in the window and he goes, John, have you done a lot of driving before? And he's like, no, actually, he's like, I have my car that I took around in, but he's like, I'm not even really a car guy, but once I get in this car as Mike Kendall, he takes over.
Yeah, well, I guess you guys felt that driving it back once you got the car too, right? You get behind the wheel of a car like that, you wanna spin your tires, right, and kick some gravel out.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's impossible for your foot not to get heavy. It just isn't. A high-powered automobile like that is extremely fun to drive.
So
let's talk a little bit then about that script, because you were talking about sort of the way that he came on, Hawks came on and was reading a lot into it and asking you guys a lot of questions to sort of mine down into the character. What's it like for you guys on your productions where you write your script in advance? I mean, so obviously you didn't write this explicitly for John Hawks, but he shows up and he's so much that character by the time you get to the screen that I feel like there's got to be sort of a collaborative process once he gets into set. How much does the script change from writing stage to shooting stage?
It totally depended. I mean, the script didn't change much at all, like the actual script, but it changed from actor to actor. Like someone like John, really came in and just got his role down, got his character down, and he may have changed a word here or there, but I mean, there was definitely no, he wasn't like flying off improvising. He was very dialed in, and he was very meticulous about every word he said and why he was going to say it. And then someone like Clifton Collins Jr., took the role and said, hey, I've got a friend, he used to be a Crip, he used to be a pimp, let me go talk to him and see if this up with everything we want to do here that we've just talked about. So we had this big discussion about what we want to do with the character, and he really liked it, and he's like, all right, let me bring some shit to you. And he went off, and he came back and was like, what if we said something like this that means the same thing but just a little different? And we're like, okay, Grant, I don't even know what the fuck you just said, but I'm sorry, can we not cuss on this?
Yeah, all right. Oh, no, man. You let it fly. Yeah, that's no problem.
All right. Yeah, you might as well get into the flavor of the film, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But he really brought a lot to that role.
I think the same with Jeremy Ratchford, who plays the hitman. He showed up with that big, beautiful, feral white goatee.
And our first instincts were, no, this doesn't work. Like he's got to represent himself as a cop at one point. No one's going to believe it. He's a police officer. It's not going to work. And then Ratchford goes, no, you don't understand. Like the way I see this character is that, he's like a rhino. Like he doesn't know what he looks like. He doesn't know that he shouldn't be playing a cop. He's completely oblivious to, what people think of what he looks like. And so we agreed with him. That was a really cool approach. Let's see if it works. And he's like, yeah, give me the first day on this thing with this beard, and if you guys don't like it, we'll talk about it. And so obviously, he came in and did such a fantastic job. We were loving every minute of it. It was a great decision.
I loved his look in the movie, and it really pops in the scene in the bar where he's getting called out on his badge and the bullshit that goes along with that, and he's sort of looking at his badge going, huh, and then you really sort of take a look at him and you're like, yeah, what is he doing?
Right.
Excellent look.
Yeah, it was a blast because we had come up with the hearing aid and the glasses. That wasn't written in the script, but Ian and I had come up with that. I was just sort of like, getting all the characters down in pre-production. So we said, hey, what do you feel about these half-inch thick Coke bottle glasses and like a hearing aid? Like this guy, has impairments. He was picked on as a child, which has sort of led him down this pathological, journey to become a hitman. And he was like, oh, absolutely. But when he's holding that badge close enough to see it, because he's literally blind. He cannot see with those glasses on. Like when they wrote that script for us, they're like, he could not wear these longer than 5 minutes at a time.
So, what's the process of casting this? Because you have such a wide range of talent in the film, and I imagine, as the authors of the screenplay, there is some anxiety to, filling these shoes. I mean, was there one role that, was trickier than another to fill, or do all the actors just fall into place after Octavia?
So I think it's twofold. Look, you want to when you hear a name and you hear an actor and you just like, yes, and I instantly sort of go, can we see that person doing that part? A lot of the actors we've pursued, some of them actually, to your point, came to us. I think like we could kind of walk through that journey sort of loosely.
And we have a lot of fun, like kind of counter casting. Like we'll pick someone that doesn't usually do that, or pick someone that and maybe go talk to them and just see if they're interested in that. But also in that conversation, you'll if you don't know them already, you'll start to see if there's a version of that character that they could play, or that they can do that and bring something to the role, rather than just kind of cardboard heading out to do what you wrote. There's something amazing about, you know, putting Anthony Anderson in a role where he's funny and lovable and likable, which he usually is, but he's also heavily dramatic and gets like fucked up. You know, he's gonna he's in some serious situations, and there's some serious repercussions at the end. So it was fun to put him in that role and see him be able to straddle those two sides of emotion.
And that's another great actor that Pctavia helped us to get. She was like, "Who do you want for my husband?" And Anthony Anderson was our number one pick. We've loved him since Hustle and Flow. He's an immensely talented guy, and he needed to be instantly and innately likable. When he was abducted, you could care instantly, because he only has a handful of scenes to pull this off, and to get you invested as an audience. And so she's like, "Well, let me see what I can do." He's immensely busy with Blackish, but Anthony and I get our nails done at the same salon. Ultimately, it didn't come through the salon connection, but she met him at a party, and within like 2 weeks, she's like, "Anthony's in, boys." And with John, Octavia, and Anthony, we were greenlit through the financiers, and away we go. Ian and I have loved Clifton Collins Jr. since the Stone Age. He's just an incredibly talented guy with limitless versatility. And our director of photography, Johnny Durango, helped us make that connection. And like I said, within, Cliff was Skyping and popping, like within a couple hours, we were Skyping with Cliff. He was popping into green teeth. He was telling us about the little curly cues he wanted to try in his hair. The dude just like
fingernails. He wanted to do some things with his fingernails. We had this whole, we talked about the character, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, let me talk to some friends of mine. Let me talk to some guys I know, and really like work on the character." So like he went out and sought out people that live a lifestyle similar to that, and like carved out, his version of what he really wanted to do that was based sort of on his own thing and based on reality that he saw.
Yeah, I remember in our first conversation with him, he was like, "Have you guys read Iceberg Slim's Pimp?" And we're like,
"Yeah."
Nice. But it was on our queue tomorrow. Like, Amazon, come on, get that baby here. Don Hawks had worked with Robert Forster on a previous movie, and he was like, "What do you guys think about Robert Forster for the grandfather?" I'm like, took about half a second for us to be like, "Absolutely, let's get him." Like, love Robert.
He also Hawks brought Don Harvey, who's the scummy bartender. And he was like, I keep reading this role, and I can't get Don Harvey out of my head for the scummy bartender. And we laughed and said, "All right, well, let's chat with him." So, we had a quick conversation with him, and we were like, "Okay, yes, like he's perfect." And then Katie Lotz came on board. UTA was the agency. UTA did an amazing job after Anthony came on of liking the script first of all, and then helping us with some of the ancillary characters. Like they were like, "Hey, what do you think of Katie Lotz?" And I mean, we weren't like thinking, "Oh, Katie Lotz would be amazing for this crossover." They were like, "What do you think of Katie Lotz for this? She really wants to do something like this, and she loves John Hawks, and would love to do this. If you guys think, what do you think?" And we were like, we loved her in the Pact. Now she's in the DC franchises, but I mean, just the work she'd done in the Pact and the moments she'd done that we'd seen her on TV, we were like, "Oh, she did this little sci-fi with Brandon Ross not too long ago." But she's just a great actress,
and it was exciting for us to see her do that role.
And it was something she'd never done before. We hadn't seen her do a role like that before, so it was super exciting to bring her in. I think that's why she was excited about it. And then Michael Vartan, we sat down with him, and he was just like, "I really want to do something a little darker, a little fresher," and we were like, "Awesome." He's like, "I'm usually playing a love interest, and I'd love to come out and show that I've got a little brass." And we were like, "Awesome, man, that sounds awesome." So he was just sitting down with him and talking to him and seeing his passion for it and his excitement. We were pushed in that direction as well. Like, he's going to make a great, Officer Crawford, Detective Crawford. And then Sunjata, same thing. He's got such energy and such great screen presence in like Rescue Me and whatnot. And we were just really excited to see what he could do with that fiery detective. And then we have like a film family that we've sort of brought together as you make films, and Dale Dickey, who played the bartender.
Yeah, she's so good in that.
She's so amazing. That's our third film with her. Like, we will work with her until we keel over.
There's nothing the woman can't do. She's
so
talented.
You can put her in anything, and she'll make you love it. Jeremy Ratchford is one of our film family. James Lafferty, who played the good-looking hitman, the front man. One of our family.
Yeah, and it was great to meet Stephanie Scott and work with her on this picture. She's tremendous.
Stephanie Scott was amazing. That was another one that we were looking for someone who's not 15 but can play 15 convincingly. But boy, you got to have a lot of you got to have a lot of presence and emotional wherewithal to not only act like you're 15, but sort of play the distressed 15-year-old who's like a shit and then extremely vulnerable when the shit goes down. And she had a lot of emotional turmoil to sort of go through in a short amount of time. And boy, we just really lucked out finding her. She's so talented. And then Sean Kerrigan is another guy that we work with a ton. Michelle Lang's another person we work with a ton. There's just a lot of actors in there that we love working with.
Yeah, and this is our second movie. We had the good fortune of shooting in Utah, and there's just some really amazing talent there in the local casting that we've used now in both of our pictures. So
it's funny you're you got a lot of roles to fill, but honestly, that's one of the funnest things for us is to sort of look in our, you could say like your bag of tricks or whatever, but you've got these people that you've worked with that are, it's like the tools in your shed or the arrows in your quiver. You're like, okay, what, amazing instrument, can I hopefully bring into this?
Well, and it all falls into place. It sounds like, there wasn't really a moment of panic or an anxiety in making it happen, cast-wise.
I guess there was panic and anxiety of is John Hawkes going to do this role when we pass him the script? I don't know,
Yeah, is Cliff available? Is Robert available? There's all these, there's those questions and moments.
You hope those people like it, but you just never know. And thank goodness this one lined up. We got, the cast we wanted. It was incredible. And then some. So this one, it was amazing. But they don't always go like that, and you're always hoping that the people you like for it will like it.
So I think based on everything that you guys sort of been talking about with bringing the actors together and giving them a chance to inhabit the characters that you got, I think your script is solid in the sense that all of these characters are characters. There really are no cardboard cutout characters in the story, and so just like I said, conversationally, sort of flight of ideas in my head, I have been thinking about lately, the way that we talk about some of the actors that go into roles like that. I was having a conversation with my wife before I came over here to do this recording about character actors. Is character actors a dirty phrase? Is that a backhanded compliment if you call somebody a character actor, or is that an actual compliment? I'm not curious where you guys stand on that.
I don't believe so. And I think it was in an article maybe a decade ago that Nicholson did, where he was I never saw myself as a leading man. I always saw myself as a character actor who happened to be doing leading roles. So I don't think it's a dirty phrase. I think that honestly, it's almost like you're giving them a compliment that they can be a chameleon.
Yeah, and when you see a quote unquote character actor get into a bigger movie, that's exciting. I can't wait to that person work in this environment. I think it's kind of thing. You could argue the same thing if there's a stigma on the classic independent film.
Yeah.
That's
why I think about it, because where you said with the independent film connection, I think about that a lot. With I'm not saying that you don't get characters in tentpole blockbusters, right? And I'm not saying that you don't get quality scripts out of those. But I think one of the things that defines success of independent cinema is the fact that to get your movie made in the first fucking place, somebody really has to be interested in literally the written word on the page, which sets a higher threshold for the characters. So a lot of the people that you can get to bring in to fill those roles tend to be sort of we were just talking about as character actors in my mind. But a guy like John Hawkes or even Clifton Collins, right? Those guys, they go in and they inhabit their roles like chameleons, like you're saying. It's lovely to see them get a chance to lead movies and things like that. And I don't know, I guess in my head I went down a rabbit hole of they're fucking actors, right? That's the word, right? Is character actor a redundant phrase? I guess is sort of where I was at. It feels like the acting, right? You learn the role and you do the thing.
Yeah, I do feel like there's definitely two types of actors you get though. You get a lot of there's the actor that sort of does what he does and is the leading man, and he it's like a personality.
Right.
And then there's the guy or gal who likes to change it up every time. Quintessentially, Cate Blanchett is an amazing character actor, and
yeah, absolutely.
Daniel Day-Lewis, of course, but I don't think I recognized Cate Blanchett, for the first 5 or 6 films she did, and then I went, holy shit, that's the same person. Like, she's incredible.
Yeah, I have that reaction. Well, I mean, to keep it sort of small town crime centric, I have that reaction every time I see Clifton Collins in a movie. I'm like, what? Oh shit, that's it.
Yeah, he's so good, man. I remember seeing him in Traffic, and we were such big fans of his, like we said, since like Stoned Age, which is like a goofy comedy, like a stoner comedy. And then seeing him in Traffic playing Frankie Flowers, this, gay eccentric hitman, like he's so different. I remember seeing him and going, that can't be Clifton Collins Jr. who played Tack in, Stoned Age. That can't be him. And I was like, but he looks so similar. And then I remember looking him up and I was like, holy shit, like, he's so good. Like, this guy can do anything.
So, skipping departments here, talking about Durango and the look of the film. I mean, what was your conversations with him as far as establishing the style and the tone of small town crime?
See, that might be it. We don't talk about Durango. Johnny, we've shot. This is our third film with Johnny, third feature film, and we've shot probably 5 or 6 shorts with him. This is like our third feature. He's a really good friend of ours and a wonderful human being and incredibly talented. We can't say enough about the guy. We feel like we're all kind of growing together. We feel like he shows us a new trick and a new, piece of his talent and grows every time we step out and shoot something. And this one was no different. We shot a short before this that we don't have released yet, but there's sort of a proof of concept in our minds if we needed it. And, we were like, let's go dark. And he was really took the light out, but left the little nuance of light, left the detail in, and it was just an incredible experience working on that with him. And then we went into this, we all were kind of synced up on what we wanted to see and what kind of movie we were making. It was a great experience, and he and his gaffer, Matthew Gonzalez, out of Chicago, amazing collaboration between them. They've done plenty of projects together as well, and it's just, Johnny's an amazing talent. He really is.
And there's more than one occasion we backed him into a really tight corner with limited resources, and he was able to pirouette out of it. So we can't say enough about him and the look that he was able to capture and generate for us.
That train sequence is probably the best example of that sequence in the train yard with the shootout at the end.
Mm-hmm.
We had like a few days to shoot there, but we got so crunched on time at one point. We had to have Johnny turn around really quickly, and initially, right off the bat, we didn't have enough money to light the whole thing, so he could only light half of it at a time. And so he was like, okay, well, here's what we'll do. We'll light half of it, and then we'll flip it around and shoot the other half. And, of course, we had to flip it a few times, but he was like, it's going to take me 45 minutes to flip the world. So that's what they call it, flipping the world, so you can shoot the other side of the scene, basically. He's like, so just know that when you're planning out, your day. So we're like, okay, great. And that all was fine and wonderful until the last day.
Utah throws a little curveball at you in the form of rainstorms and windstorms and everything else.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, Johnny, you have 19 minutes to flip this around, and we need it done.
Yeah, we can shoot for a half an hour before the sun comes up.
And get the other side of this portion of the shootout we were shooting. Not the whole thing, obviously, but a portion of it. One of the characters, the other side of another character. And, there was no bitching. He just said, deep breath, okay? Let's see what we can do. And he just got on his walkie and ran over there himself. And, he's a very hands-on guy, and he just made it happen, man.
And he came back to us in 17 minutes with his watch running down and said, all right, we're ready.
Well, that's got to be it. I guess that's right. That's the tricky part. That's the tricky part for any production where you're working on a budget and you got to figure out how to make things work. Did you guys run into any other issues like that where you had to problem solve on the fly? That's a lot of making movies, I guess.
The whole thing is like that. We really feel like we always talk about it. Making a movie is like 50% creative, and then 50% you're just putting out fires trying to get to the creative part. It's solving problems every day, all day, trying to stay ahead of that giant wildfire that's burning up your ass, trying to take you out, So Like that's what it feels like, because you're like half focused on like, oh man, this has got to be amazing, and how do we get every ounce out of the scene, and then you're like, okay, how do we make sure we have enough time to shoot this as we don't as
racing the truck.
I mean, one of the most amazing things that happened is coming from California, you usually get like, I don't know, what is it, 10 hours of nighttime or 11 hours of nighttime. And then so when we scheduled this out, we didn't have like a Utah nighttime schedule in mind or spring schedule in mind. When we got there, like it didn't get dark enough to shoot until like 10 p.m. some nights.
Oh shit, that's great.
And then the sun came up at like 6:10 or something.
Yeah,
so
very short window.
It was such a short window. We lost a couple hours just because of that,
And then I remember the scene where John Hawks like wakes up in the field in the morning and he sees this car, several hundred feet away. A day and a half before we shot that scene, there was 6 inches of snow on the ground right there.
Wow.
Yeah, when we scouted it, there was 6 inches of snow, and like they've got pictures of us all walking out in the snow to scout this, and we're like, we look at all of the Utah natives, and we're like, are we gonna be like, oh, it's fine, it'll melt off, it's fine, and sure enough, they knew it.
Well, of course, if another snowstorm doesn't hit, it'll melt off. Another thing was that that driving sequence, the chase scene, the big chase scene that's in there. We scouted the location, we thought it was going to be great, and then of course a giant rainstorm comes. You're in kind of the Utah Valley, so it's surrounded by these mountains. But what that does, we learned, is it sends the weather on a circular pattern. So you get a rainstorm in, it doesn't just pass over and head out to sea or pass over and head off into the mountains like it does here in California. It literally goes in circles around you as the wind is swirling. And just it's raining, it's not raining, it's raining, it's not raining, it's sunny, it's not raining, it's cloudy, it's raining, it's a mess. And we shot out there for 3 days with that happening. So it was literally like, okay,
hailing, stop.
Hailing, snowing, raining, windy, right? So
sunny, shoot.
Yeah, so we were literally just waiting for little patches to open up that we could shoot in during the day, because it was such a mess, because you just won't match if you have to shoot with all that mess going on. So we had to wait for patches of moments of weather clarity to jump back out there and shoot.
Yeah, that's a testament to the whole crew making that happen. I mean, there's guys and gals sitting there wiping down the windshields between takes, and just amazing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we got about 15 seconds to get this take before the windshield's going to have too much rain on it, and people will know it's raining. So at times it's a circus, but you just do the best you can, man. You just try to figure it out and look at your storyboards and make sure you're getting your shots and you can cut it together, and yeah, always fire.
Always. So that's half the fun of it. You just got to embrace it. You got to say, okay, this is part of the process.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure being brothers, there's an unspoken communication that might make things a little easier in pushing the project along.
Without a doubt. I mean, over the years now, Ian and I have become more and more dysfunctionally codependent. I think the work we do together is far superior to anything we would do separately.
That's what.
How does that work? I mean, how does your familial connection motivate your creative bond, or does it ever hinder it?
Well, I think the one blessing of it is that we can be utterly and completely candid and straightforward with each other. It also helps that we, when we began our love affair and interest in film, we had a very similar palette, and I think that's from us growing up together and just watching the same movies and getting excited about the same movies, and therefore our tastes sort of synthesize into very similar.
And then we have our process as well. Like, we really fight everything out, if there are any fights, in the writing process. Like, we try to not leave one word unturned that's in the script. There's no like, oh, let's just leave it in there and we'll figure it out on the day.
We'll do one take for you, one take for me kind of bullshit. Like, we're always like, nope, what is it? This line sucks. We're like, well, what if it's like this? And we're like, okay, well, if it's like that, then it works.
Yeah, so we'll go through and digest everything and make sure everything's the way we want it and we both understand how it's going to play. So on the day, whether you're talking to him or me or whoever the hell else on the screen, like, whoever's talking to us knows what we want, and we're synced up.
There was one day that we learned of this after the shoot, but apparently John tested us. And during the shoot, he went up to one of us and he asked us the question, and I was like, oh, this is it. And then he left, and on the slide, came back to the other one and asked that person the same question, and he got the same answer. Which he was like, okay, we're good here.
Well, isn't that the fear from an actor's standpoint from having two directors, is that there will be a breakdown in the vision?
Yeah. I can imagine it's a very, very top of their mind concern. So Ian and I definitely, like, when we go out, we're like, we want to be synced up because you need to be in order to get these things done in a timely manner.
And it makes it better too. I mean, there's no like trying to make a decision on the fly. I mean, you'll have to do that at certain times, but hopefully it's not how you see the film, because that could be really lengthy, That could be a real process. So yeah, you just don't quite have time for those conversations when you're shooting an independent film. Like, it's like you should know what you're shooting, why you're shooting it, and the conversation should be like, oh, we don't have that house anymore. Like, what are we going to do? What house are we going to do?
Or we need to lose 3 shots to make our day on time. Like, we go to the storyboards and we nix 3 shots that we don't need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you shoot the movie, you go through all that stuff. How involved are you guys in the editing process once it comes time to do that? I mean, since we're talking about sort of collaborative vision and all that, if you guys are on the same page during shooting because you've answered all your questions about what you want out of the film, and you've got your storyboards clearly defined out for the shots that you want to get for the day, and you're able to make those intelligent decisions on the fly, do you feel that the editing process is a challenge for you guys to overcome? I mean, it's certainly got its own issues. How difficult is that process for you?
Not difficult at all. I mean, there's always difficult in it, but you're always running into problems while you're editing of like, oh, I thought this was going to cut together a little different, or you thought the strongest way was going to be different. And then it changes, or
the narrative needs adjustment. Like that.
So there's always something. But
I don't know if it's obvious that Ian and I edit the movie. I don't know if it's we do it under a pseudonym.
Yeah,
I was wondering that.
Thank you. Yeah. So
you're Trayton Lee.
We are.
It's both of our middle names just back to back. Okay. I like that.
But for us, I think the editing process is very similar to the writing process in that when we set up, we'll usually be in the same room editing. We have 2 workstations. Ian will be on one, I'll be on the other. And once we get a rough assembly or assembly that we like of a scene, we'll pass it off to the other one. And they'll do their tweaks or whatever, and then we'll do back and forth until we're happy with the scene. And then we just pick them as we go along, like, oh, do you want to cut this scene? I'll cut that scene, and then whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Did you have any disagreements on, like, in that process? I mean, was there, like, a tweak here that you would have preferred or your brother would have preferred?
Sure. I mean, we cut a little bit differently. Like, our processes are like exactly the opposite. Whereas Eshom will put down a scene and he'll pull all the little bits about the scene that he likes, even if those little bits aren't supposed to be in the scene, like a laugh or a gesture or a hand movement, or they do just a funny look. He'll pull them all and he'll stick them in a pot kind of at the end of the sequence so that he has this, big bowl to choose things from. Whereas I will go through, watch the footage, and just be like, I like take 4 and 5 or whatever, and I'll pull 2 of them. I like this moment, I'll pull that. And I just have a very few selects, and as I'm selecting, I'm putting the scene together. Whereas he just kind of buoys everything on one side, and then he constructs, 4 or 5 versions of the scene, and then he whittles that down to one streamlined version that he likes as he's picking all the wonderful things he likes from the 4 or 5 versions he made. And I'll come over and sit at his. He'll say, okay, come look at this. And I'll come over and sit at his, and I'll look at 4 or 5 versions. First, I'll look at the one version he has, and I'll say, oh, interesting. And then maybe we'll talk, and he'll say, well, interesting. And he'll go back, and we'll watch the other 4 versions. And then we'll be like, ooh, that little moment. And then we'll discuss it, and then pretty soon he's like, all right, I know what I'm going to do, or we know what we're going to do. We'll do this, this, and this, and then that'll be it. Great. Because mine is like, I'll put a sequence up. I'm done. I'll pass it to him. He'll sit down, and then he'll say, was there anything in there that had this feel to it? If he feels it's missing something. And I'll say, let's look. And we'll sit down, and we'll look through that moment in the film, and if we can't find anything that we think matches what we're looking for, then it gets serious, and we got to start going through every take and looking at the beginning, at the end, even stuff when we're just rolling and we're not actually saying action yet. Like, does this reaction fit what we're looking for if for some reason we don't have it already? And rarely that happens, obviously. But But yeah, it's a different process with both of us, but the same outcome. Yeah.
Do you guys do any pickup shots when you find that it's do you rely on that as a way to solve problems if you find you don't have what you were looking for, like it just didn't shake out right for the feel that you wanted to go for that scene, or do you avoid that?
We rely on everything. There was one movie.
I like your description of your editing process. You know, I have 3 kids, and you know they're all younger than 10, right? And they've discovered Legos recently, and they try and do team building efforts where they'll work on different phases of the Lego building. And I shit you not, that one of them will put this together, they'll pass it around like you were describing, but then the other one will take it apart and sort of reassemble it slightly differently. I guess it's quite what you were saying, but that's sort of what I was picturing in my head a little bit.
That's totally what it feels like. He's like, good concepts, bad build.
Structural integrity here needs to be strengthened. Yeah.
But what was that? What was the question on that one? Where were we?
That's a good. Sorry, I was thinking about my life stepping on Legos. No, I was kind of curious as to sort of I guess solving problems in the editing process. We were talking about like that and bringing people together.
With every subsequent picture, we just realize how important and what a critical journey the editing process is. Ian and I have a pretty lengthy testing process where we'll go through and for like Small Town Crime, we tested that movie over 30 times with a small audience. These aren't like massive
tests.
5 people, 5, 10 tops, It's like we'll invite 10 people and 7 will show up or 5 will show up and we'll go with that, Yeah, we do some popcorn and have some, sodas and maybe a beer or 2 on hand for people to come over to our place and watch the movie. And then we do an extensive follow-up where they have to fill out a questionnaire, which is maybe up to 7 pages long. It takes about 20 minutes. And then we sit down with them afterwards and really drill down into anywhere between a half hour and an hour follow-up session. And through that process, it really helps us, get the objective point of view that we need in case things aren't coming across that we thought were, very obvious, or if there's any sort of like fires we need to put out. We'll go ahead and we'll stamp out the biggest ones first, and then you'll have, the subsequent little ones spark up, and then eventually you'll get to a point in that process where everybody has a different opinion, and that's when you go, you're good. Because what you're really looking for is the meaning of the overlap in that process, and if everybody's point is that you'll have a questionnaire and like 5 out of the 7 of them will have this one overlap, and you're like, okay, that's the thing we need to address.
Yeah, and a lot of times some of the things it gets a little tricky when you get down to the minutia of it, because a lot of times that scene or that moment or that character might not be working because of something else that's much further up in the line or further down in the line. It might not be. The problem might not be the exact scene they're pointing to. It might be the motivation for that scene that was 5 scenes ago or that was 20 minutes ago. So it gets a little tricky, and you got to start analyzing your analytics. But those are through conversations is how we usually whittle those out. Well, why isn't that working for you? And they're like, well, because he da da da. And you're like, oh shit, we should have set that up a little better, harder, earlier. Let's figure out a way to get that in there,
Yeah, I think as we've done, more and more pictures, we get a little bit better at reading the tea leaves, so to speak.
Well, I guess that's kind of, as you get more and more pictures under your belt and you get further along into your career, it's obviously filmmaking isn't, it's circular because you finish a project and you move on to the next one, but it's sort of that sine wave, right? You're rolling along and you go from editing into the production on the next one. What do you take away from, what are your best practices that you've learned from the editing process as you try to solve problems that you use to inform your starting out on a new project and help to avoid those in the front end?
Well, as we said, we try to use every tool possible. So, some of the things we've had to do to fix films in the past that we've relied upon are, on one of the films we shot, we did not intend to have a voiceover go through the film. And we finished the film, we put it up, and it was just a little too nuanced for everybody. And we tried to cut, and change, and shift, and it made the film a lot stronger, but ultimately, all that made the film really strong is of us trying to tighten it up and fix this and turn this and add a little line here to clarify this and that. But ultimately, we needed a voiceover. But by the time we got to adding a voiceover, the film was in the best possible shape it could have been. And then we started adding a little voiceover here and there, which actually made the film, a lot better. Yeah. Because the the whole point of a film is that you're trying to get something across to your audience. So there's literally no shame in what you can do to try to get what you're trying to get to your audience, to get to them. So whether you have to add a voiceover track or a couple of lines here, or as simple as a couple of lines here or there or whatever, we're always out for how do we get what we meant to get on screen and to our audience.
So what do you? So let's talk about that for a second, because I mean, you guys have been making movies for a while now, and it's hard as shit to make a movie, and it's hard as shit to make a career out of making movies. What motivates you guys to get your story out there into the world? Like, are you looking for that feeling that I had, which is like, oh, that's a badass, raw, like I want that feeling, or like, are you looking to bring characters to the story? Like, what do you want your audience to get?
I feel like it's different every time, but those are absolutely things that, you know, we were really hard after that on this film. We were really hard after that sound design, not just for the car, but for the shootout. And at first we caught a lot of flack for not putting any music in that end shootout. But we told them, we said, hey, this is kind of like a Western. Like, that last shootout needs music. It needs to be just the elements and maybe some clanging chains or whatever it would be organic to the train yard. But that tension, once the shooting starts, there's no music. There's build up, a little bit of tension, very subtle, all the way until the shooting starts. And then it's just gun. It's a cacophony of gun and movement and dirt, foot sliding. It's all just like the intensity comes from the characters and the situations you put them in and how much you care for them, or, you know, how much you want to see them get those guys.
So I fucking love that scene for exactly the reason that you do not rely on music for the intensity of that moment, because it is exactly the Western shootout with the standoff and the trade, and I fucking love it. But my brain just exploded when you reminded me of this. I watched it this morning before I came over here. The scene where the one of the hitmen gets shot in the fucking face and his fucking jaw is coming off. Who did that effect? Talk about that for a second.
That was very talented. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother. What was it?
No. Talk about the effects, please.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I think a very, very talented VFX guy in Utah did that for us, and I need to find his name right now. But for us, like, we, you know, that was written in. We wanted it to be really gory. We love those Cronenberg moments, the splashes of gore.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's something that we get a kick out of. We love to see. You know, it's interesting that you say that. For that very moment, we had a test screening over here, and we played it for the audience. And we had, you know, it plays, and then they give a little streak, and some of them reel back, but one of them, like, leans into it. Right? Yeah. And the dude, like, leans in, like, he's, like, trying to look at it closer, and he's utterly horrified. He's like, oh, but he leans in as he's watching it. And we're like, oh, great, this is exactly the reaction we wanted to get. Like, amazing that it works. And then at the follow-up Q&A, he goes, you know, you got to cut that gory. The same guy that leaned in was like, oh, as he did that, he's like, you got to cut it. It's so bad. It's so gory. I think it's, you know, it's too much. And we're like, yeah, but you leaned in to get a closer look. It wasn't like you could have turned your head away. Instead, you, like, leaned in closer to look deeper into it. And he was like, good point. Like, he was checking his subconscious psyche about it. Like, gosh, you're right. Like, I did do that. And I didn't. Why didn't I turn away? And he called us a week later, and he was like, you know what, guys? You have to leave it in. You can't cut it. It's great. Like, you're right. Like, that's what you need. And so, for us, like, those little splashes of gore that we throw in there, we're going for, we want the engagement of the audience. And there's nothing funner for us than to sit there and watch the audience react.
I also think that those moments of gore, those little splashes, it beckons back to watching some Cronenberg films, but it's like that gives you like a sense of it gives you a sense of consequence. It's it's not just sensationalism. It's not just fun. Oh, it's so fun to watch people get shot in the face. It's like, no, like, you start thinking like, holy shit, that was fucking terrible, you know?
Yeah.
So I like those consequences. It's not just fun, it's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
Well, that, like, in there's a shootout in the bar that happens off screen, and the two cops are there checking out the aftermath of it, and there's I don't know if you can hear there's a leaf blower going on in the background. Sorry about that.
That's right. I can't really hear it, but
okay, good. But so there's a throwaway. It's almost not a throwaway line, but it's an aside that he says, "Oh, and that woman was just having a drink." Like, sometimes you see these scenes of violence in movies where it's like you're like, "Oh, violence," and then all of a sudden you remember suddenly like, "Oh, these are people."
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's we like action films, and especially with the current climate of gun control and whatnot, obviously we're all for, making it, the right people have the right tools, and keeping it out of the hands of people who should not have them. And I think part of that is the responsibility of a filmmaker is if you are going to do it, I think you need to show the repercussions and show that it's not all just fun and games. Like, real people get killed, and even if you are making an entertaining crime thriller, that I think those splashes of gore help, man. I don't think anybody's going to be racing to show small town crime to their 5-year-old, which is great, or their 10-year-old. But I think,
and that's an audience that shouldn't be watching.
Exactly.
I mean, we were watching it in the that extreme at that age. Our parents sat us down at Terminator at 10 years old.
Yeah.
We love it.
But that's kind of an interesting thing, that the point that you bring up. Like, I mean, I write about a lot of movies, and I know, Brad writes, we both write for Film School Rejects on the regular, and every now and then, you like the headline mashup and just the awful, terrible reality of a lot of the violence that we see in our own country right now and how devastating that is. It makes it hard sometimes to go and look at that. And it's such a complicated conversation to have, because I love movies. I love vengeance movies, right? Like revenge flicks where they go out and they just fuck some people up because that's what you do in movies. But the older I get and the more I think about the concept of revenge and all of that, the reality of it becomes much, much less appealing to me. And I think art can straddle that line where you get to sort of see it and play it out and think about it. But it's tough. It's a tough spot to be in.
No, but let's make note. These are movies. This is a movie. This is a fantasy in some respects. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to think about as well, because the culture, a lot of Asian cultures have a lot of very violent films and some of the lowest crime rates. So it's a weird.
What is that correlation?
Yeah, I don't know what the correlation is. I'm not quite sure you could say that it has something to do with the gun laws, because I think they are a lot stricter in Asian countries, as opposed to, not every one of them, but, like Japan has a lot of violent movies and I think really strict gun laws. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm not quite sure what the correlation between movies and violence is.
I know that you and I have been raised on a really healthy dose of violent movies and have no sensitivity towards violence.
I don't like guns. I don't own a gun. I rarely have ever. I shot one when I was younger because our dad was trying to teach us how to shoot one, which I think is good to know how to shoot one, and how to respect one. But yeah, I don't like guns. I don't hunt. I don't shoot things for fun. It doesn't appeal to me. But I do love violent films.
Right. I've always thought of it as, with small town crime in particular, I mean, you're working on a particular type of canvas, and that is, that's one of the brushes you use, right? And, to your point, when that jaw comes off, I mean, it shows that that Anthony Anderson is in trouble, right? This person could die.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. For us, it was like, okay.
No, you're
go ahead. What was the next?
Oh, you're saying for us, that was a little moment of you actually admiring the hitman. My God, look at the determination of this man. His face is blown off, his knees blown off, and he's still going.
I guess I don't mean to take the conversation slightly away from that. It's just an interesting thing to think about, the mashup of art and reality. I don't quite know how it works either, but
I don't know either.
Yeah. But man, shooting some fucking guns in some movies and getting some good effects and having people appreciate the peril that they're in. That's all. It's good stuff. I love it. What are you guys working on now?
We just got hired. We got attached to direct this film called Capture for Thunder Road.
They're behind you.
Yeah, John Wick and
Awesome.
yeah,
Sicario,
and but yeah, they're a great company, and we're super excited about the film. We're just
getting ready to go.
Yeah, getting everything ready to go, and hopefully start heading out to cast here in a little bit.
Yeah, we've got another series that we're working on with Pctavia Spencer. Don't want to tell you too much about that, but it's a little like sci-fi fantasy elements in there. So
Ooh.
Into it. Well, I'd definitely be looking to know more about that as soon as you share it. That's for sure. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So I think one of the, I've been doing a lot of interviews with filmmakers and kind of having these long form conversations because we really I think there's a lot of value in getting a sense of what the experience of filmmaking is like for people who are out there working in the business. Because I said this earlier, but making movies is hard, and a lot of the process, like you said, is even 50% is problem solving, which can be fun and stimulating, but it's exhausting and it's difficult and it's always a challenge. And so one of the things that I like to talk, that I ask the people that we talk with are, if you look back at your career, and it can be I would like an answer from both of you actually. What's the one moment that you look back at, when you're having a shit day and nothing is working right and everything is frustrating, that you kind of think back to, and it's the thing that makes you feel like, you know what, this is all worthwhile, and I'm pleased with what I'm doing.
It's probably just being able to tell stories. Because we definitely like a lot of different types of stories, but telling stories and sharing them with an audience, and hopefully sharing and getting that feeling that we received when we watched certain movies back in the day. So I remember the first movie we made, Squirrel Trap, showing it at the first festival we'd ever been to. And it was like 50 people in like an AMC, and it was up on a big screen, and the sound's coming out of the speakers properly, and it's up on the big screen properly, and the laughs are hitting. And I mean, that's no opus by any means, but it had some entertainment value, and people enjoyed parts of it or enjoyed it. And it was an incredible experience. And I think just sharing the work for me is and getting people to react and understand and sync up with you at certain times with the drama and the comedy or whatever part of it is, or them even them cringing when I would cringe is fun. Like, it's really fun.
Yeah, I think also a great thing to keep is the perspective. If you look at like the scope of a film, it's utterly overwhelming. If you just okay, it's day one, we're gonna write a new script, and then hopefully in 2 years it's coming out. Like that process is utterly overwhelming. I think anyone would be daunted by that. For us, it's just, okay, what are we going to get done, not only just today, but what's even go less, what are we going to do in the next hour that gets us closer to that finish line? And if you break it down like that, suddenly the daunting task of making a film and coming out the other side is reduced to the next hour, and then the one after that. And that, to me, makes it palatable. You can go and you can approach it from that point of view.
Similar on set, you'll be on set and, I think we shot 35 days. I know we shot 35 days on Small Town Crime. Every day is we're getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep every night. And if you think, holy shit, I got to do this for 3 months, 7 or 8 weeks, this is going to be really tough. You don't think of it like that. You just survive the day, and then you get up, you survive the next day.
Yeah.
You get up, and you survive the next day, and every day you're doing the best you can to make it the best movie possible. But yeah, you take it one at a time.
I love those answers, guys. Thank you very much for being so candid. And thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us for so long. I know time is precious, and we really appreciate that.
Hey, Brad, Billy, it's absolutely our pleasure. We thank you guys really much. I'm so glad you enjoyed the film, and it warms our heart, man. That's why we do this.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's everything. You guys enjoyed it. We enjoyed making it, and thank you so much. It was awesome.
Are you guys on? Are you on social media? Where can people reach out and find you? Got anything that you want to promote other than the Blu-ray for Small Town Crime dropping this week?
We're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter under Nelms Bros.
Okay.
But yeah, that Blu-ray's coming out. That DVD's coming out. There's 3 commentaries on there.
We got Pctavia Spencer do her first ever commentary. So
Whoa!
It's awesome.
I want to look at that then. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. We really love having you along. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
And there you have it, the Nelms brothers. I thought that actually turned out pretty great. They're really interesting dudes.
Yeah. I think they're a lot of fun to listen to. And I like their approach to filmmaking.
And, you know, if you've made it all the way to the end of this podcast and have not seen Small Town Crime,
What's the matter with you?
do yourself a favor. It is coming out on Blu-ray, but right now it's available on demand or through Amazon. Rent that.
Seriously. Support the film. What? Why are we having this? We should not be having to say this. Go watch the movie.
Besides, you've watched it already, right?
Right?
John Hawkes.
Come on.
Pctavia Spencer. Commentary track, dude.
Yeah, commentary track.
I'm buying it for that. All right. That's it. Join us next time, next week, usually a Monday, maybe a Friday. Darren does this normally. Billy, we can get you on what? On Twitter? You're on Twitter, right?
I'm on Twitter at WBDAS.
All right. And I'm Brad Mouthdork, and you can find me at Mouthdork on Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, all those places.
I miss the disco dork.
I seriously miss the disco dork. How dare the other dorks for abandoning us to this interview? But I again, I thought it turned out pretty great.
No, I think this went great.
Yeah. So screw them. Yeah! Bye.